Jim Harbaugh isn't giving up on the NFL just yet. According to reports, the Michigan head coach is a top candidate for the Denver Broncos head coaching job. And this comes after reports saying he's already interviewed with the Carolina Panthers. Last week, Harbaugh released a statement saying, "While no one knows what the future holds, I expect I will be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. Interesting statement there. Let's bring in Alan Trieu, our national recruiting analyst, for more. Alan, for 2 straight years now, Harbaugh has entertained interest from the NFL. The Wolverines' 2023 class sits at 17th nationally. So before we talk about his future, how did last year's coaching cycle impact his recruiting performance?
Yeah, I think people thought that the 2023 class would be a little bit more higher ranked for Michigan coming off of a college football playoff appearance and a Big Ten title. It still finishes inside the top 20, but I think people were expecting a top 10 finish out of that class. Now, how much those rumors impacted the final standing in that class, hard to tell. I do think that Michigan picked up a lot of momentum as the fall went on. I think the good thing for them now, though, is that this is the second straight year they've gone through this, and so you can be a little bit more prepared for starting off this 2024 class a little bit faster.
Yeah, Alan, they could be rumors. There's a lot of question marks, and I think that recruits and their families obviously have a lot of questions for that program. But what kind of uncertainty does this leave Michigan with right now, with players like Nicholas Harbaugh, with players like Jaden Davis, whom the Wolverines have been perceived to be among the favorites for?
Yeah, I think there is uncertainty. It does sound like Jaden Davis and other players in that 2024 class want to wait and see what happens here, and that's no surprise there. I do think that this needs to get resolved quickly in order for Michigan to move on in the recruiting trail or stay as status quo if he is still the head coach at Michigan. Either way, I don't think the lingering rumors help them at the moment. You're only going to have a couple of weekends left to recruit guys like Nicholas Harbaugh. They're still on Jamel Howard out of Chicago Marist in the 2023 class, but I think they want to make sure this doesn't affect their 2024 recruiting. And Jaden Davis is certainly the big fish in that class right now, but Michigan's scheduled to have a couple of junior days later this month where they can get those players around the staff and hopefully put some of those concerns at ease in person.
Yeah, Alan, as the attention shifts to the 2024 class, once again, Michigan dealing with this uncertainty for the second year in a row. So to avoid repeating that slow start they had in 2023, how is Michigan dealing with the possibility of their coach leaving yet again?
I think scheduling these 2 January junior days is a big part of that. And I do think that was the plan regardless of these rumors because this has been in the works. But this is going to let them get kids on campus a little bit earlier, let them get out of the gate a little bit sooner. And like I said, they've dealt with this last year. And I do think that the staff is a really good recruiting staff. They have good relationships with the players. So as long as the staff gets retained, I don't think it'll end up affecting the class too much as long as guys like Sharon Moore, Mike Hart, Ron Bellamy, Steve Klinkscale, Mike Elston, they've all made big marks on the recruiting trail this year. And if they're in Ann Arbor, I think the 2024 class will be just fine.
Alan, there's also that recently announced NCAA investigation into Michigan and into Harbaugh. How could that affect recruiting for the Wolverines moving forward?
I think that has to resolve itself a little bit too. I don't think at the moment it's going to affect recruiting too much. Maybe it affects Jim's decision to stay or leave a little bit, but hasn't come up so far on the recruiting trail. And depending on what kind of punishment gets levied down on that, then it could, you see what kind of impact it has from there. But at the moment, I think that's another wait and see type situation.
All right, well, for now, Jim Harbaugh is still the head man. But if he were to leave, who does Michigan turn to for his replacement, Alan?
I think you have a couple of candidates in the building already. Sharon Moore's name gets brought up quite a bit. Mike Hart, who's an alum, his name gets brought up quite a bit. Sharon is coming off of 2 straight Joe Moore awards and has done a really good job taking over as not only the offensive line coach, but co-offensive coordinator there. A name that I've heard brought up for several years now is Harold Goodwin, who's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's an alum. He's got some ties to Michigan, and you never know what other names will come up off of the radar. But in the moment, I think those are the 2 names within the building, and then Harold Goodwin is a name that seems to frequently come up when you talk about potential next Michigan coaches as well.
Yeah, they like to keep those Michigan men in Ann Arbor. All right, thanks for joining us, Alan. Appreciate you. Now, Blair, keeping the conversation going, even if Michigan hires a coach from within and they keep that staff intact, how far behind do you think they would be in the 2024 class if Harbaugh were to leave?
Well, if they do hire from within, I think it would be a positive step towards them being able to retain a lot of the momentum that they've built on the college football playoff appearances, right? They've reached it for back-to-back seasons. They are a team that I think has regained its status among the elite nationally. And Jim Harbaugh has done that. And now if you hire from within, you continue to have maybe that same mindset as a recruiting staff. You continue to have the same recruiting board and an identity. That's going to help them alleviate things. So, whereas I think a lot of fans would want them to take a look and make sure they hire the perfect replacement for Jim Harbaugh. If they do hire from within, I think it would make up for some of that on a recruiting standpoint. They'd be able to flow and continue that momentum a bit more.